students, I welcome you all for the online class of business studies. Today we will be going to complete the chapter number 6, that is social responsibility of business and business ethics, by starting with the topic business ethics. This is the last part of the chapter which we will be going to learn. What do you mean by business ethics? I already explained in the preceding classes. Business ethics means the law, which is, it is not law, it is your moral value which resides in a person, whether the person knows what is good and bad, and then also if the person chooses the good, then it is the moral value of the person. Sometimes people choose the bad also. So it is in oneself what the thing they are deciding, what the thing they must do and what the thing they must not do. Business ethics refers to the set of moral values or standards or norms which govern the activities of a businessman, because businessmen are also the human being. Their ethics defines what is right and what is wrong. It involves critical analysis of human act to determine whether these are right or wrong. For a businessman, the ethical decisions expected are: first, to provide the customer with true information regarding the products and services, allowing the customer to make free choice, providing quality product at reasonable prices, etc. Ethics versus law. When we say the various ethics and law are as follows: ethical behavior is about the behavior required by law. Both law and ethics decide what is right and what is wrong. Law reflects the ethical or moral values of society, that is, what conduct is permitted and what is not permitted in the society. And if one is breaking the law, then one is punished or penalized. Okay. The business ethics also decide what is the expected conduct of businessmen and what is not expected by the society. Some unethical aspects of business are also punishable, such as adulteration, black marketing, etc. But some acts are considered unethical which are not punishable under the law. Example, unduly high price charged by the businessman is unethical, but it is not punishable under the law. That is why we say ethics are above the law. Okay. Elements of business ethics. When we see what are the elements of business ethics, let us see some of the basic elements of business ethics while running a business enterprise are: very first, top management commitment. The very first thing what the business ethics can be do, has in the above paragraph we have learned there, law is compulsory but ethic is not. It is up to the person whether they want to fulfill the ethical value or not. Okay. So that is the ethics. And law, it is compulsion, that what is said has to be done by every person. They have to be followed by every person. Elements of business ethics. When we learn some of the basic elements of business ethics while running a business enterprise are: very first, top management commitment. See, a student, business is run by the owner of the business. They only plan what they have to do, what way they have to achieve, what way they have to make the work to be done by the employees. So their role plays a very important role. So they must be committed that whatever decision, whatever planning they will be doing, it must have some ethical value. They must not follow the wrong tactics of doing the work, wrong tactics of planning. So top management has a very important role to guide the entire organization toward ethical behavior. The CEO and the other top level manager must be openly and strongly committed towards ethical conducts and guide people working at middle and low level to follow ethical behavior. Publication of a code. Generally, ethical organizations define a code of conduct and set of ethics for all the employees in the organization. These principles are defined in a written document called code. These ethics cover various areas such as health and safety in the workplace, fair dealing, selling and marketing activities, etc. So publication of a code is needed for ethical organization of the things. Generally, ethical organization must be there to define a code. Though their ethical is not compulsory, but still ethical values like adulteration someone is doing, black marketing, it is wrong under the law. But ethically it is also more wrong, because if adulteration we are doing, black marketing we are doing, we are humiliating the human beings. So that way it is unethical. So we have some set of rules and code of conduct. So that set of ethics is conducted under publication of a code. These ethics cover various areas such as health and safety in the workplace, fair dealing in selling and marketing activities, etc. Establishment of compliance mechanism. To make sure that actual decisions match with a firm's ethical standards, suitable mechanism should be established. Example, corporate ethics in training, recruitment, selection, etc. The employees of the organization must be free to support about the matters of unethical behavior in the organizations, involving employees at all levels. While making ethical programs and policies, employees must be involved because these have to be practiced by them only. Whatever rules we are forming to protect the society, to protect the business, that have to be followed by the employees. So it must be, whenever ethical programs are held, it must be with the employees. By forming small groups of employees, the ethical policies can be discussed by them and we can examine their attitude towards these policies. Measuring results. Although it is very difficult to measure the ethical results, but it must be verified and audited that how far work is being carried on according to ethical standards. From time to time, the top level must meet the employees to set the future plans of action. So that is measuring result must be there. They must measure the ethical result. It must be verified and audited that how much people are following the ethics and how much they are not following. What way we can make the people ethical to do the things directly or indirectly. So from time to time the top level must meet the employee to set the future plan of action, that too in ethical. So this was the chapter, students, social responsibility of business. I hope you have understood. We will be going to start this part 2, that is the sources of business finance, because we have to continue our chapters. So this chapter I will be starting. If any doubt you people are having in term 1 portion, that is 1 to 6 chapter, you can ask to me through the online classes way, or through the WhatsApp, and through the way of offline classes which is going in the classes. The next topic which we will be going to start is business finance, sources of business finance. In this chapter, student, I will be giving today the short introduction. I won't be taking a brief explanation of this chapter. Sources of business finance. I am having some questions before you. Can you think a business can be started without capital? Can a businessman can plan without thinking about the financial decisions? From where the capital can be arranged for the business? Sole proprietorship or partnership or a company? From where the source of finance is arranged for this type of business? What source is better for them? If there are varieties of sources, which sources will be better for them? These all questions answers are given in this chapter, that is sources of business finance. The meaning of sources of business finance is that whatever the business required the capital to be invested, from which place we can arrange, what can be the sources of accumulating this business finance, that is known as sources of business finance. Meaning, when we go, business finance refers to capital fund and credit funds invested in the business. Financing means making money available and when it is needed. Business finance may be defined as planning, raising, managing and controlling all the money used or capital fund of any kind used in connection with the business. That is known as business finance in simple terms. Definition of finance by different authors, if we will take one definition by B.O. Wheeler. According to him, he said, finance is that business activity which is concerned with the acquisition and conservation of capital fund in meeting the financial needs and overall objectives of business enterprise. So in simple term, he said the finance is that activity of the business in which we are arranging the finance and then we are allocating the finance in various needs of the business so as to achieve the organizational objective in a smooth way. That is the definition given by B.O. Wheeler. He said he is concerned with the acquisition and then conservation of capital fund in meeting the financial needs and overall objectives of business enterprise. So business finance must be arranged in such a way, finance in the business must be arranged in such a way that it will meet day-to-day requirement as well as the objective of the business for which business has been laid down. Finance is a major function of any business enterprise. It deals with the arrangement of an adequate amount of capital to achieve the objectives of the enterprise. Nature and significance of business finance, when we learn what is the nature of business and finance, is that no one can start a business or run an enterprise without adequate fund. We all know. If we start a business, if we will saying to someone, want to start a business, the first question will come, what is the amount of finance you are having? what the amount you want to start a business. So that is the question. So amount of capital required depends upon the following nature and size of the business. Business enterprise require capital and finance for the following purpose. While starting a business, finance is required to procure fixed asset and also for meeting day-to-day expenses, to meet the working capital requirement when production process is lengthy, to finance the growth and expansion projects of the company, to finance the growth for everything what is needed, finance is needed. Definitely for fixed asset and working capital, what is needed, finance is needed. To meet the working capital requirement, what is needed, if the lengthy process there, finance is needed. Growth and expansion of the business, what is needed, business finance is needed. Adequate finance provide the following benefit to a business concern. The firm will meet its liabilities on time. The firm can carry on its business smoothly. The firm can adapt latest technology and new innovative methods of production. The firm can make use of its business opportunities. The firm can face competition more strongly. And the firm can replace its assets and machinery wherever necessary. Even the firm can face recession and depression period. What do you mean by depression period? When continuous loss year after year the company is getting, it is known as depression period or recession period. That time also business can flow if they are having adequate amount of business finance arrangement. Conclusion of the meaning of business finance, if we will say, a business enterprise needs finance at every stage. It must be available in an adequate amount at the right time for smooth functioning of an enterprise. In short, we can say that finance is the lifeblood of a business. Without that, business cannot think of running. When we talk about the financial needs of a business, it can be classified into two categories. Very first, fixed capital requirement. Second, working capital requirement. Fixed capital requirement, when we say, like for example, we want to purchase machinery, land, fixed assets. In order to start a business, is required to buy fixed assets such as land, building, plant, etc. This is known as fixed capital. The fixed capital remains invested in the company for a longer period of time. That is, the company should prefer long-term sources of finance to meet this requirement. Working capital requirement. The finance required to carry on operating and day-to-day activities is known as working capital. Generally, working capital is used to buy current assets which gets converted into cash in 1 year. Usually, firms prefer short-term sources of finance to meet working capital requirement. Types of business finance on the basis of period. On the basis of time period, student, there are 3 different types of finance needed by the peoples. Long-term finance, medium-term finance, short-term finance. When we go with the long-term finance, funds which are required to be invested in a business for a longer period of time, maybe for 5 years, more than 5 years, that are known as long-term finance. Features of long-term finance, why it is required, where it is required. This type of fund is used for acquiring fixed asset. For example, land, building, plant, etc. We purchase land and we have taken the loan for 10 years. That is a long-term. Large-scale enterprise require more of long-term finance as compared to small-scale enterprises. That is the definitely large-scale business require large scale of assets. Huge costly assets. Definitely they will require long-term finance. Small factory retailers, traders, etc. require smaller long-term finance. There are 2 long-term finance, one is large scale and one is small. So small traders require smaller terms long-term finance, exactly for 5 years, more than 6 years likewise. Long-term finance is required for expansion projects and the adoption of innovative techniques. A company can raise long-term funds by issue of shares, debentures and long-term loans. Medium-term finance, when we say, the finance required by business enterprise were more than 1 year but less than 5 years, known as medium-term finance. Features of medium-term finance are, this type of fund is used for introduction of new projects, modernization of plant and machinery, etc. Generally, manufacturing industries require medium-term finance. Common sources of raising medium-term finance are accepting public deposit, medium-term loans, etc. So this was for today's class, students, as I explained to you people. Next class we will be going to learn the next topic, that is various sources I will be starting. Thank you for today's class. Have a nice day.